And we're back, episode 101. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Log Talk with Pert Near Outdoors. This is your host, Billy, and this week is going to be a chat. Big Jim actually caught up with Tyler Breen. Tyler is one of the men behind Cartel Custom Calls, so if you, like many of us, have been enjoying following along with them on social media and some of their great marketing, as Jimmy touches on here. They're a lot of fun to watch. They got some good humor and kind of hide who's behind the business with the way that they're marketing things. And we had heard rumor that Tyler was one of the guys. And Tyler turns out, actually, I think he's quite a bit younger than Jimmy and I. Didn't realize that he was an HFL Honey Falls Lima grad. That he is from the same town Jimmy and I are. Just younger than us, and I don't think we ever ran in the same circles, but pretty cool to connect with him. And my God, what a wealth of knowledge. This is probably one of the best podcasts as far as just being clean, easy flowing, great information. Big Jim hit it out of the park here, and he called it when he met up with me at camp on Friday night. He was all fired up about this one, and I just got done listening back to it, and well done, fellas. Some really fantastic, relevant information for you hitting the turkey woods right now, and probably I would say more now than ever, having some good strategy and having some good understanding about how the birds are acting and why they're doing what they're doing definitely appears to be needed, at least speaking for our immediate family, the 10 or 12 of us in the Harvey clan. It was a tough weekend. Opening weekend was, every year you're looking forward to it. I know this year I was especially looking forward to it because I was going to go up to camp, and I haven't done that in years. So there was a ton of energy, on top of everything that went on last year in 2020, with deer season being kind of jacked up and turkey season being jacked up. We had a full camp, and that hasn't happened in a long time, especially for turkey season. So we had a bunch of people in camp. The drinks were flowing. Stories and laughter and just good times with everybody on Friday night, and could not really, I knew they were calling for a weather front to blow through, but I don't think any of us were anticipating measurable snow. And as we're sitting there, got done eating dinner, and it was kind of, spitting and sputtering, the temperature was dropping, and the precipitation started changing over, actually around 4:30, 5 o'clock, over to kind of like grapple, frozen, like freezing rain type stuff, but like actual like pelletized frozen stuff, meaning snow. And for God's sakes, you wouldn't believe it, by 8 o'clock, it's snowing sideways, and the snow is accumulating on, the bench and the picnic table and things like that. And sure as shit, by the time we went to bed, it was almost 11 o'clock. And we start packing it in, and there's a good inch of snow on the ground, and I think it snowed a little more throughout the night, and the wind was just absolutely howling. So 4 a.m. came along pretty early, and we all hit the woods, and it was a absolutely gorgeous morning. It calmed right down. The sun came up, crystal clear blue skies, but not a bird to be heard, a bird to be found. At least with us, I think Adam might have heard a few gobbles, but I don't think he saw anything. And it was absolutely dead quiet for Jimmy, myself, Dad, Uncle Mike, Joel, that everybody. We were all around our property. We had probably 1,200 acres covered between the 6 or 8 of us, and not a peep. So we did end up having a coyote come in on us and blow us up on our first setup. Jonesy and I did. That was pretty cool. That thing came out of nowhere, and Jeff got a pretty good rush out of that. It came in his side of the tree, and it was probably 10 yards, and as soon as it came in, I think we both saw it at the same time, and I think it saw us at the same time as we were turning to look at it, and it turned and darted off. But pretty cool experience for Jeff to on his first ever turkey hunt, first ever opportunity to be out in the woods like that. It was a really cool experience with the fresh snow and cold and sun coming up, and have that coyote come in. So really memorable opening day, spending time with Jeff, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad I was up there, and sorry we didn't get you any action, buddy, but it wasn't for good trying. I did find a tick on myself after I was flicking them off. I went for a quick walk Friday evening, and I was flicking them off me nonstop. I thought I got them all, but I was, doing a little nature call, if you know what I'm saying, probably around 8:30 on Saturday morning, and I found a little fella had burrowed into me. So keep your eyes peeled. The ticks are just god awful this year. I don't know if it's because we're all paying more attention to it or if they really are getting that bad, but you can't walk through the woods, especially anywhere where there's any like young growth vegetation where you're brushing up against. They're just everywhere. So I just sprayed my stuff down with permethrin tonight. I haven't done that before, but I know a lot of people speak highly of it, so I did that, and definitely advise everybody, if you know you're going to be going out and you're going to be, you're going to be in the bushes or be in the grass, especially, make sure that you're checking yourself thoroughly within 24 hours. If you're at a camp or something and you're not going to be showering, take a little extra time. I thought I did on Friday night, but apparently not good enough, and had one in me. So I'm keeping my eye on it, looking for the bullseye, but I think I should be in the clear. It shouldn't have been too long. It was on me. So that's that. Probably more information than all you want to know. I didn't hunt Sunday. I slept in, gave my wife a chance to sleep in, and all things are great here around the Harvey house. So happy wife, happy life. I'll live to hunt another day. And goose egg for everybody else is what it comes down to. Shout out to Justin Worley for shooting his first bird. He stopped by here today to pick up his winnings from the spring stimulus raffle, and was proudly sporting the Jake in the back of his Chevy Silverado. And I have never seen anything like it. He said he shot the bird at about 45, 50 yards, heading away from him, and he put a slug hole through this thing's head. I've never seen anything like it. And he's shooting a 12 gauge Winchester, some sort of Winchester round. I'm not going to pretend I know what it is because that's not what I'm shooting, so I don't really know what the hell it is. But holy hell, legitimately a golf ball size hole straight through the head of the turkey. I don't care if it's at 20 yards or if it's 50 yards. That's incredible. So congrats to him. Congrats to Winchester for producing one hell of a round and putting that Jake in the back of his truck. So one happy hunter there, his first bird ever on his own on public land. Fantastic. Congratulations, buddy. All right, we're going to kind of get into it, but just a last thing. I know we announced the winners of both our contests, our shed hunting contest last week. We had Todd MacArthur out of Williamson, New York, so out a 315er, had the best match set, so congrats to him. We had Shane, his last name, he's a Polish boy. I think it's Szymanski. Well, nailed it. Simsnansky. Probably not the way it is, but he's Polish. He'll understand. South Buffalo boy, I'm sure. It's all right. He had an absolute fantastic single side, so he won that, and Trigger won the best deadhead. Unfortunately, that's one that's nice to win, but not nice to find on your property. That's a buck that would have been an absolute slammer this year for us to chase after, but on to the next, that is. So we had a great turnout with that. Appreciate it on that end. And we announced all the winners of the spring stimulus, so I don't need to revisit that. But want to just give a quick update on the T-shirts. I apologize for the delay on it. We had all intentions of having them by the end of the month, but there was a issue with the printer and an issue with the artwork, and things were lost, so we were going to have to restart that. I was assured by Russ that things would be moving along here quickly, and he put a rush on it. So stick with me. If it's an issue, reach out, let me know. I'll give you a hug or something, and I'll send you a sticker. Have Big Jim send you a beer, whatever. But I apologize. They're coming. I've got the packages ready. It's just a matter of I need the shirt to put in the package to send to you. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. It's business. Stuff happens. That's the way it works. Okay, I'm going to wrap her up. Have a great week. If you're getting out there to turkey hunt, smack a big one in the face and enjoy the edumacation you're about to get from these two guys. Have a good one. Keep fading them. Hello. Yeah. That's your
Yeah.
name.
Squirrel's got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
When you're
the ghost, and
275
that's Tard.
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
The Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah.
You know,
He's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
How did you say his name?
Hervé Villagers.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors.
All right. Well, I've been trying to get to know you a little bit, and David Nab there, our buddy, sent me your number to hook up with you. And so who I'm talking to here is Tyler Breen. You started Cartel Custom Calls. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your business you got going on there?
So my name's Tyler. I started Cartel Custom Calls last year with a longtime friend of mine, Trent Snyder, who's from Rushville. I'm from Honey Falls. Me and Trent have been hunting together for probably, his son was just born and his son's 9. So been probably 9 years we've been hunting together, turkey hunting primarily, did a little waterfowl hunting together back in the day, but mainly chasing longbeards. And we've hunted turkeys in, I don't know, probably 15, 20 states now. I don't really keep track. Been a lot of places together, shot a lot of birds together. And he started hand pressing mouth calls on a little mouth call jig probably 5 or so years ago, 6 years ago, because we were sick of spending $12 or whatever at the store, and getting something that didn't work for us. So we just started kind of pressing our own stuff and figuring out what worked. And we were always running calls that were made by Top Game Calls out of Pennsylvania, and they're a V-cut 4-reed, and they just allowed us to get a lot of a lot of tone, a lot of volume out there to get shot gobbles or responses at long distance, in the Northeast woods up here. Especially, you got a lot of traffic and all kinds of stuff. You really got to get out there and touch them and to really suck that gobble out of an Eastern. And the last 3-4 years after I left working, I was a production manager at Zinc and Avian X for 2 or 3 years. I don't really remember. I was freelance on and off there for a while too. I left there, and we kind of got on our own film gig in the springtime and just started compiling footage. I actually taught myself how to film, and when I was filming, Trent was my guinea pig. So that was kind of how our relationship got to get, we're both only children. We always both wanted to shoot. And I was like, hey, everybody shoots, but if I film, I can do something that everybody else doesn't know how to do or can't do or doesn't have discipline to do, and it'll take me somewhere maybe. So he was kind of my guinea pig, man, and just went from there.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on your videoing because I didn't see last season's yet, but I caught some of the videos from this year. You had 3 up when I watched. You had 2 from Indiana and 1 from the youth hunt here in New York. And I actually just talked to my brother on the phone here a little bit ago, and we were like dumbfounded by the footage you're getting.
Word.
Yeah,
well,
it's unfreaking believable. Like I was just sitting there watching the TV, and I had the volume way down because my kid just went to bed. So I was just trying not to wake him up, but I was trying to catch a couple of your videos, and I was like, the volume wasn't up, so I didn't get all the volume out of it, but just the footage itself of the birds strutting around the decoys, and I'm like, holy shit, this is like just the colors shining off the birds and puffing up and down. And, pretty much most of the hunting we do, if we get birds that come in, we're not giving them time to strut around the decoys. I mean, they get in and put their head up and separate, and one of them drops. So, watching that footage and the patience, and we're dumbfounded. We were like, that is freaking unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate it, man. We put a lot of time into scouting and, locking down properties in some cases, or just knowing when to go and what birds to target to get the quality that we're looking for. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of experience, and a lot of shooting a turkey and filming a turkey are just two totally different things, and it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of patience. And, there's fist fights and screaming matches and all kinds of stuff that goes on. Birds walk off. And the first funny story about filming, if everybody thinks, they want to film and stuff. So me and Trent go down to Texas to a buddy of mine for the first time in, it's like 4 years ago now. And the place is just loaded with birds. And the first morning, I'm pretty sure that Trent had probably 40 different longbeards walk by him, and not a single one of them gobbled, not a single one of them strutted. And I was just like, dude, just let him walk. He was ready to beat me up right on the spot, man. But the next day we went out, kind of got on the different side of this bowl, man. We laid down the sickest. It's actually up on the True Timbers YouTube channel, but 2 longbeards come in from the left, 5 come in from the right. He's sitting against a mesquite tree, and we just had this 7 longbeard beat down over the shoulder hunt. And I was just like, see, man, a little bit of patience goes a long way sometimes,
Yeah, that's freaking incredible. I'll have to go catch that. But so you said you worked for Avian for a little while?
Yeah, Fred Zink hired me in late 2017 or spring 2017, I think it was, as a freelancer, or 16. No, it would have had been 16, because I just got out of college, and I went to work for him as a freelancer during turkey season, filmed Josh Grossenbacher and Matt Moret. And then I went to work that summer. I actually took an internship with Chris Brackett, and I was out at Chris Brackett's. I drove to Peoria, Illinois. I was there like 2 or 3 weeks, and Matt Moret called me and was like, hey, you want a job? Fafa, who at the time was the production manager, after Walt left. Him and Walt Gabbard and Jeff Fafa Shelby were the kind of the guys that crafted that whole Avian X TV into what it was. And then they both Walt went to Drift Media and then went to Mossy Oak. Fafa just went to Mossy Oak. But after they kind of phased out, I was like kind of really the only person that knew the internal workings of what was going on there from freelancing. And so they called me, and I was like, yeah, man, I'll do it.
Nice.
I'll learn.
So what are you doing now? You said you're not doing that anymore?
I mean, I still film, I still freelance and do, I get hired by different media companies or different television shows to go and film or edit or do commercial work, whatever, photos. Sometimes people or brands want to license content that I have just stored in my media bank, whether it's velvet whitetail footage, turkey footage, duck, goose, whatever. But primarily it's freelance work going and filming for outdoor television production. Like this fall, I was hired by Non-Typical Productions, Jacob Keel out of Michigan. And he coordinates with Chip Spalding. I'm sure you know who Chip City is. Chip Spalding, Animal House Outdoors. He's from
I don't know if I've seen
Falls.
that. Is that on YouTube or?
Animal House Outdoors was on Sportsman's Channel. It was an Outdoor Channel original or Sportsman's Channel original. I can't remember which one back in the day. And it was like that and Arrow Affliction and Fear No Evil. And then Chip edited and produced Brackett's show and was a partial character on that show for a while. And then now he just kind of does his own freelance work. And so he was Jacob, Chip, and I, and Alan Harker filmed the majority of and produce the majority of the honey break experience, which is it's down in Louisiana. It's really high on Duck Lodge. It's the largest WRP wetland reserve program project that's currently active. It's like 30,000 continuous acres. You can't drive a truck through. The place is sick.
That's
loaded
awesome.
with ducks, giant deer too. Like people think about big deer, they think about Iowa and stuff, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the deer that are growing on that place, man, are something else. I
That's
mean,
insane.
Tyler Jordan killed a 190 something down there this year. I mean, I seen multiple 160, 170 class deer come out, and I mean, it's middle of Louisiana. So
Yeah, that's something you don't hear about a ton.
no.
So
But
you've
those
been
guys
actually pretty damn involved in filming in some of these outdoor shows and stuff like that. I had no idea about any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I filmed for Last of a Breed with Laramie Miller. People send me Snapchats all the time because they see me. I dropped them off in the truck to go turkey hunting supposedly one day. I've worked with the Union Sportsman's Alliance on Brotherhood Outdoors with Jameson Crass. I've done some smaller scent lock commercial work, True Timber. I've done some stuff for Nomad, and just the list goes on and on and on. I could be here all day listing stuff off, but I filmed with Terry Rahm, who was the first Grand National Turkey Call champion, with On the Road Outdoors, which is Dead Ringer and Rock Ridge, that conglomerate. I've done a lot of special projects with Rob Keck. I've actually filmed Rob Keck shoot a winter world slam. So I filmed him kill every subspecies of turkey, all 6 of them in the winter time and winter flocks and stuff. We went down to Mexico and shot oscillateds, and he had a governor's tag. He killed a Gould's on the leap year last year in Arizona. So, I mean, I've spent a lot of time around a lot of different people in the industry, been super fortunate, but.
So like, as people like us, we look at that and we're like, man, that would be the life. So how is it really?
Some days. It's a lot of hard work. That's all I can say is, like, it's a craft, and I'm super passionate about the outdoors. My grandfather was state chapter president of the National Wild Turkey Federation here. I grew up playing with box calls while their kids were playing with Lincoln Logs and had,
Right.
BMX bikes and stuff. I was running a box call. So, like, it's in my blood, and I love it every single day. And just, while I was in college, I just sat myself down and just shot the camera religiously. Like, I used to treat it like I was going to baseball practice. I'd go and shoot 500 frames on wildlife every day, because your settings and everything has just got to be second nature. Like, when the shot's going down, when stuff's going down, somebody's going to kill something, like, you got to be on point, man. There's no error. There's no, wasn't in focus or none of that, man. Like, it's an extension of you. Like, you're just downloading your brain to an SD card,
Yeah, that's freaking insane, because, like, I borrowed a camera from my mother-in-law because I was like, every year I'm like, I would love to just film shit, even if it's not great footage, just have my hunts on film. And every single year I say I'm going to do it, and then it just ends up being, I just end up throwing the camera to the side and killing shit. So it's just one of those deals where, like, I want to get into it, but number one, the actual equipment that you really need is expensive as shit. And then the other side of it is to learn the equipment, to use it the way it's supposed to be used, is such a freaking thing in itself. It's like a whole nother hobby. It's more than a whole nother hobby. It's like a freaking job.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you don't truly love it, then you're kind of out. Like, when I started filming, like, I was really fortunate to have Trent as a friend, and I'll, like, due respect to him, because, like, the kid is a straight up stone cold killer. Like, I don't think I've personally ever seen him miss. I mean, his blood just ice runs in his veins. And I know that, like, if I'm sitting there, it's not going to be some, you know, like we're on the same page. We've been doing it together so long that like we don't even have to say anything to each other. Like we already know what's going to go down. And it's just like, oh, turkey gobbles on the limb, pitches down, 3 yelps. Here he comes. All right. He doesn't even have to ask me if I'm on him. He just knows.
Yeah.
And so like, but that was me. Like, I was like, you know, I don't know. Like I shot 5-10 turkeys, whatever. And I was just like, you know what, a turkey's a turkey. I guided a bunch. And then like I started traveling and I was just like, you know, I've seen a lot of them die. I mean, I see some new stuff from time to time, but typically it's a lot of the same thing. And I'm just like, you know, this is sweet just being here, experiencing it, being able to film it. And so like I started getting more amped about getting cheddar footage, like getting the cherry hunt on film, because then people are like, dude, that's sick, because you could show it to them after, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where I'm at with you, because it's like
being able to convey like what you see and you're like, this is so sick, dude, like you should have been there. But actually being able to put somebody there, that was what I was always after, you know.
And I'm not gonna lie, like I'm always excited about turkey hunting, because it's just, I know it's coming every year, and I actually probably get more excited about turkey hunting than deer hunting. Just because it's the interaction with the animal, and you know, it's finding them out. And sometimes, which is part of what I want to talk to you about in a second, is that I think I overthink them, but just the communication with the bird, and just like I'm always excited for season, like I was saying, but I sat down the other night and watched your 3 videos right in a row. And I was so freaking jacked up after watching all that film. I was like, those videos were like just textbook, boom, 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 just unbelievable footage, great freaking turkey hunts. Like, it just got me fired up. I was like, all right, let's go.
Well, I'm glad, man.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome footage. But the other part I want to talk about was like, you guys are running decoys and you're running a blind in the 3 films that I watched from you there. But in the past few years, I feel like a lot of the birds that we work are just like, whether they're educated or hens just don't want anything to do with you. So if you start talking, the hens take the gobblers away or what. But it's like, I've kind of gotten into the point where I get more into just figuring out what they're doing and ambushing them, because it seems like every time we pipe up, they do something different. You know, they'll walk away from you or sit down 75 yards away where you can see them, and they'll just gobble, 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 but they won't come. So watching your videos, the last few years, I've gone super tame on calling, and watching your videos the other day, I'm like, am I overthinking the shit out of this? Should I just be, you know, if you got one, go and get after it and try to get them in? Or it's a hard read, and I don't know what the answer is to it, but
yeah, I think that the one thing that a lot of spring turkey hunters fail to like get as the understanding of the turkey and their vocabulary and their verbal and nonverbal responses to calling are like very subtle in some cases, but like any good old Northeasterner, I grew up shooting turkeys in the fall season, right?
Yeah.
And like everybody's like, fall turkey hunting, dude, that's whack, man. That's so whack, you know? But when you fall and winter flock hunt them, what you hear and their responses and just their pecking order establishment and stuff, and being able to identify age of bird, not necessarily the age of a gobbler, but the age of a hen by her body and her feathers, like her secondary, you know, coverts and stuff, can give you a lot of information. If you can see the turkeys out in the field or whatever, it can help you pick up on a lot of little nuances that are going to sort of craft what you're going to say to them. And just, you know, run of the mill things that I would have never figured out on my own, but hanging around people like Rob Keck and Josh Grossenbacher and Matt Moret, like just world champion turkey callers.
Yeah.
Like hunting with Matt Moret in New York and just watching how he called turkeys just totally changed my life, to be honest with you. And like, he'll just, if there's a gobbler with hens, he'll just flock talk them. And as long as a gobbler, like if he's standing out in the field and you call and he goes alert, and then he goes into full strut, like he'll listen to you call and then he'll go into full strut and drum, that nonverbal response, if he's got hens with him, he's just as good as him gobbling at you. And eventually he'll mill around with those hens, which are typically, from my experience, I've seen them, they're Jenny hens. And you can look like a complete hero because he'll strut around with those hens and he might gobble at you 5 times, but he'll drum at you every time you just, yo, 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 just as soft as you can call. And it's just soft enough so you can still, loud enough so you can still hear it, but just super soft, just flock talk. Every time he drums at it, he'll just keep drumming at it, gobble up once for every 10 drums. And then eventually, 10, 20 minutes will go by and he'll come right to you and you just tap.
Yeah, because like that video you had there on the youth hunt, wasn't that 2 longbeards with 2 hens?
Yeah, it was 2 longbeards with 2 hens just out milling around, picking it, and they were adults.
I was dumbfounded that you were calling freaking 2 gobblers and 2 hens across the field to you. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was nonstop calling from the point that we sat in the blind, and it was box call, slate call, copper call, mouth call, box call, slate call, copper call, glass call. And then on the 3rd time that Tanner mouth called, that turkey gobbled and they came through the hedgerow and they broke through and he could see the decoys, but he couldn't really, the one wanted to do it, but the other one was kind of hanging back with the hens. But every time that Tanner called to the turkey, he went into full, complete strut, and that nonverbal response, he didn't gobble till he got to 75 or 80 yards.
Right.
He just kept kind of slowly working. And as soon as Tanner would let up on calling, he'd start drifting, or he would just kind of turn his body. You just keep calling to him. And in that particular scenario, which happens, if I see 60 turkeys dying a season, that scenario might happen 5 out of the 60, where he just needs constant nonstop calling. You find the call that he likes to hear.
Yeah.
And you just give it to him. Not over calling super loud or anything, but just constant flock talk.
So that's what you're more saying is like flock talk, where it's just kind of the clucking and yelping and just keeping them just vocal. So that's kind of how I got my bird last year, because I had a glass pot call that we'd hunted these birds for like 2 weeks just playing cat and mouse with them. And I had 2 jakes that came in. I think they were in range, but they were right on the edge of in range. And I was trying to get my buddy a bird, and he'd never shot one, so he didn't give a shit. He was shooting a jake if it came in. And I thought they were about in range, but he wasn't quite feeling it, I don't think. So then, of course, the longbeard's strutting, 70 yards out. So, of course, he's hoping that's going to come in still. But we played this flock back and forth. And, this was towards the end of season, and they were still every morning they'd all drop out and go out and then flock into the field. So it's not like they were all busted up. And I think it was the last Friday of season. I think Thursday I showed up there, and my buddy had my gun because I can't carry it to work. And Thursday morning I showed up there to meet him to hunt him, and he didn't show up with my gun. He overslept.
Oh no.
So I sat there at the road and watched the birds go right across the field like we wanted them to, and the spots we had picked out and everything. And so I was just like, oh my God, we had them. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm really not that busy at work. I'm like, screw it, I'm taking tomorrow off. So I called work and I'm like, can I have tomorrow off? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, if I sit out there till 9 o'clock, I'll kill a bird.
Yeah.
So I went out the next morning. I got in a hedgerow with some telephone poles, and that's all there was. There's no trees. There was just telephone poles and goldenrod. And I got in there and nooked myself in there, and the flock came out to the west to me, and I just kept working them with that glass pot call. And every time every time or every couple of times that gobbler would just answer it, just nonstop. He strutting him with the flock across the field. I think he went across the field with 2-3 hens and broke off. And then I gave it like a half an hour, gave a few calls, and then they ended up coming back across the field, the whole flock. And when the hens went back in the woods, I think the hens and the jakes went back in the woods, and then I kept on them, and he kept gobbling. Next thing I know, they popped over the railroad tracks, and all 3 longbeards come fucking gobbling right up the field, and I ended up dumping them. But it was just that constant, like, stay there. But like, the thing is, it's like, we went out on the youth hunt last weekend, and I'd seen these birds on the edge of the field several days during the week while I was scouting it. And I tried roosting, and we weren't hearing anything on roost. But I heard one fly up. So I was like, I know they're here. So we went down to the corner. I got avian decoys this year because I've been hearing the ranting and raving about them last year. Yeah. So I got a quarter strut jake and the breeder hen, which I don't know if the breeder hen's the right thing to have. I'm almost wondering if I ought to have. It is the right thing to have, huh?
Yes.
Well, that's good, because I was starting to doubt it after my hunt with it, because we were sitting there and the birds started gobbling, but they were further east and south than we thought they were going to be. But in relation to where I've been seeing them, I was like, well, they got to come around either through the woods or around the corner and then down the edge of the field, and we're sitting here. So I had the decoys set up, and as it started getting a little bit lighter and I thought they were on the ground, I was like, well, I think I did a couple of clucks with my easy clucker box call just to see if anything was close. Nothing answered. And then as I thought they'd be on the ground, I grabbed my box call and just like 3 yelps, just a little bit louder. And there was a freaking bird that we didn't know about that was in a tree about 80 yards away, and he gobbled right over top of us. And we were like, holy shit. But it was at that point that I was like, I probably shouldn't go too crazy on them, because if they come here every day, maybe I ought to lay off. And I don't know if I messed up there or not, but he gobbled like 2-3 times, came out of the tree, landed on the ridge across from us. There's a drainage that goes up the backside of the field, and he was on the other side of the drainage on the ridge at like 75, 80 yards. And he sat there for like an hour and a half, just gobbling and strutting. And he'd answer every call. I tried for a while to kind of just leave him be and let him come. But then I kind of, after a while, I'm like, well, it's now or never. So we got after him a little bit. And he ended up coming out of full strut after like 15, 20 minutes. And he just walked to the east or the west, down into the valley and across the other side and up on the other hill. But while we were working him, there was a hen that came out to the north of us, and I couldn't see it because I was on the south side of the tree, but I heard the putting, and then she flew overhead and flew south. And I thought one of the other guys, because there was 4 of us there there's 4 of us, including the kid. And I'm like, well, somebody moved, didn't hear her coming, didn't see her coming, but nobody moved. They were watching her. And they said as soon as she hit the field and looked at the decoys, she putted and flew off. And I was like, son of a bitch. I'm like, I was all excited to use these decoys. First turkey of the season, freaking puts and flies off. So I don't know if she did catch movement or what, but she didn't like something and she split. And I thought that was game over, but he stayed right on that ridge and kept gobbling. But
yeah, that sounds almost like there was something at play there that maybe you didn't necessarily see occurring. And I've seen it happen in a lot of places, and especially with people that say that decoys don't work or decoys spook turkeys. And it could be a lot of things. There could have been a bobcat wheeling around or a coyote there that you didn't see. There could have been an eagle flying by that you didn't see. Like there could be other turkeys there that you didn't hear or know about or see, but they can hear them and see them, and they know exactly where they are. And I mean, a hen flying, like, unless you really get up and run at them, like, I don't think it was anything to do with you or the decoys. It was probably something else at play. I wasn't there.
Would have putted and walked off, right? If it was just a little movement she didn't like or something.
Yeah, typically. Yeah, and she would pick it up from a lot further away than what you're describing,
Yeah, she had to have been within 50 when she popped out into the field and saw the decoys. And like they said, immediately she putted and just flew. She kind of flew towards us and over us. So I don't know if there was a coyote out in the field further off or something.
Yeah, there could be. Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like to me, But I mean, like I said, I wasn't there. But just about Well, we filmed our first hunt without a decoy this year in Iowa, and it was because it was situational and we were in a weird spot. But other than that, I think in probably the last 4 years, I filmed well over 150 turkeys shot over that pair of decoys you were talking about, the HDR, quarter strut Jake, and breeder hen. I mean, that decoy pair is just absolutely deadly.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. But the one thing that I will say about decoys, and I encourage this, like, there's a certain list of things in my head of, like, to me, because of, I guess, what I've seen and just experience has told me and taught me, the one no that I will never, for any reason at all, except for a circumstance like you're saying, where I've had 3 or more turkeys coming and a coyote come up, and they'll fly up after they're on the ground and they're moving, right? Like they're on the ground coming to you, and then a coyote or something comes and busts them up. They'll assemble back at the break site, but I'll give it 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'll start soft talking while they're in the tree to get it, and then, try to assemble them at me.
Right.
Other than that, I'll never call until I'm for certain that all the turkeys that are in that area are on the ground. Because if they're not, they'll look at those decoys and they'll be able to pinpoint them, and they'll be able to see that they're not moving, and that'll really spook them out because they have a really good vantage point from where they're at. Me and Trent will go hunting on some days where we've watched a turkey roost, or we know where the traditional roost is. Like a lot of birds, it could be a different longbeard every year, but they'll stand on the same limb in certain woodlots. And we'll walk in there within gun range of them in the dark with a double bull, pop the double bull up, put the decoy out, and sit there. And as long as you don't call, they're none the wiser to anything. They got no idea what's going on. As soon as they hit the ground, you call to them, and they're like, "Oh, look, there's another turkey." It's just like it grew out of the ground, Like
that's why I was watching your videos, and I'm like, I am giving these freaking birds way too much credit.
Yeah, it's just understanding how they're 2-dimensional like they only can see in 2D because they can only see with one eye at a time. And I think with decoys, that's where a lot of folks go wrong. And it's still, I get tripped up sometimes, but like when we were trying to film sitting against a tree for Avian X, it was a big pain. And it wasn't a pain, but like you could kill them over decoys, but to finish them consistently and get them to come in and be around the decoy for an extended period of time and have them be completely comfortable is a totally different deal. Like I said, filming them and hunting them are 2 different things. So we would go to extra effort where we'd cut pine browse and stuff going in the morning to put in front of us and behind us to break up our shape. We'd always wear leafy tops. Like I had ghillie stuff wrapped around my camera and stuff. But you try to find a spot where you're on the X where the turkeys are going to assemble if you're hunting them, trying to work them right off the roost. But you want to get yourself in a spot where you're more or less forcing the turkeys to come at a perpendicular angle to you. So they're not, if they line you up, it's like looking on a phone, right? Like you're all in the same picture. And to a turkey, you might as well be just standing there holding the decoy. So, but if you get them to come in at a cross angle, then you're not even in their peripheral sight. So if you, I just put up another video today. That's what I was working on before the call, but there's a South Dakota video up where Trent kills this bird sitting against a tree, and the turkey comes in behind us, and he's spitting and drumming and going like this, and it's just stop calling because you can't directionalize it and move him really. He's just spitting and drumming behind us, and he's like tight. He's like 10 feet behind me. There was points where I could just reached around and grabbed him. And eventually he kind of gets into a spot where Trent can soft call to him over the stock of his gun to the right. And once that bird gets on that right angle, to the decoys, he comes in actually like this. Once he gets around Trent's left side, comes right into the decoys. But when we're all lined up like that, he wouldn't do it. He had to get himself, and then we called a little bit, made him feel safe, gave him a little music, and he just slid right in there full strut.
Huh.
But
Yeah,
you can watch his head as he's coming in. You can watch him come out of strut and turn his head to one side to use his right eye to look at that decoy. So you can see how he's using his vision to look at the decoys. And when they're coming, especially if they're coming across a wide open field directly at you or something, they'll hang up a lot of times if you're sitting against a tree and you're not covered. Something as easy as like a piece of burlap that you can put in front of you to break up your outline, or some sort of foreground cover and a little bit of back cover. Or if it's sunny, like some states where you can hunt all day, here you can't, but midday, if you can get in the shade somehow, get in a shady spot or build a little blind to shade yourself out, you can totally beat their vision. Like you could stand there and do jumping jacks, but you just got to know how that vision kind of works and what you can get away with and stuff. And it can really be the difference between success and going home really frustrated, you know?
So you don't have any qualms about throwing up ground blinds the morning of, just slap it in there and go.
No, I'll go right in. I'll go right within shotgun range of him, and I'll pop that ground blind up like I own it.
So have you ever done it like in the middle of a field, or is it normally in the woods or on the edge of a field?
Doesn't matter.
They
can't see it. It's just a two-dimensional object. And so there's a hunt on there where me and my dad were hunting down at my grandfather's camp down in Chemung County. Yeah. And I had planted some food plots on this particular property, and there was 2 longbeards every time I was down there planting and stuff. They're always hanging out around this gully. They'd been living there for a couple of years, and I was like, Dad, you want to go down there hunting? Yeah. So we go down there, pitch black, right? Coyote howls across the street. They gobble. I'm like, and we're within 80 yards of them. So I just looked at Dad, and I was like, my dad's freaking out. And I was just like, come on. This is a couple years ago. And it was actually really sick footage. I can send you a link to it after, but we walked right in and pulled my binoculars out, looked at him full strut on the limb at probably 45 yards. Like I could have shot him out of the tree. Popped the ground blind up, put the decoys out, just picked the ground blind up, put it over us, got in, set my camera all up and everything, let them. They stopped gobbling for probably 15 minutes because they were a little bit spooked. I mean, rightfully so, but it was still dark enough they couldn't tell what we were or anything. And I mean, we kind of tried to make it a little bit sneaky. We didn't just make a ton of noise or whatever, like, you know, pop the hubs all nice and soft. And 20 minutes later, start gobbling, gobble another 15, fly down, they all assemble, and then soft talk to them. Got a drum or a gobble out of them every time. And eventually it took them a while, but those longbeards kind of got themselves positioned on the backside of the hens. And then they just kind of bone those pushed. There was a Jake with them, kind of pushed them all up in there, and they came up and sacked the decoy at 10 yards, put on a big old show.
Jesus.
You know?
So when you set those decoys up, how far out are you normally trying to set them up?
14 steps.
And then
from where my chair goes on the ground, there are 14 steps. So with a 70 to 200 millimeter lens, when I push in, there's just enough space on either side of the frame for the birds to circle the decoy and beat it up. And I can be totally zoomed in and have the entire frame filled with action.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So do you put them facing any certain directions or anything?
Mm-mm.
Just throw them up there next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if you look at my videos, the decoys are always goal posted. The only reason that I do that is because my focus plane with a camera obviously is like, you know, it's a plane. It's not like, you know, it's not on an angle. So if the two decoys are like this, then everything's in focus and everything that's not at the decoys is out of focus. Because typically the longbeards will get up in there. Maybe a hen will come in and mess with the hen decoy, but everything that's sort of over here going on is just kind of there, but it's not there,
Right.
So, and I usually set them. I think the key to that though is that the decoys should always be about 3 foot or 4 foot apart.
So off of roost, are you normally kind of just doing that flock talk chatter that you just try to assemble them together? Or are you kind of going after the bird, trying to get them to get fired up and come running in? Or
it depends, man. It depends on how many turkeys there are. It depends on what kind of pressure I know that they've succumbed to. But, if he's gobbling super hard, then I just give him enough to make him gobble a couple times and then just let him do his thing. If there's a bunch of hens talking, like you can very easily call them from hens. If there's a hen that's getting really mouthy and stuff, if you can really manipulate a diaphragm call well, and you can cut and you can cut in yelp sequence and stuff, like you can excited cut and assembly yelp really, really well, you can assemble that flock to you. If you're in the woods, if you're in a field, you just got to kind of flock talk it and just kind of let them do their thing.
I had last year at the end of the season, I thought I had it golden because I had a cell camera up on the edge of a field, and after Memorial Day, it started taking off, and I had several gobblers, every morning there, and I wasn't really seeing any hens. So I thought, here we go. They're here. They're ready. So we went down there to hunt them, and sure as shit, as soon as it got early enough, they freaking started gobbling, and, I let them gobble, and then I'm like, well, I'll give them a little bit, just to let them know we're over here. And as soon as I did that, a hen piped up down in the bottom corner. And as soon as she piped up, birds quit gobbling. And once she was done, they all flew down. She went across the bottom of the field with the gobbler. And I tried, some yelps and clucks as they were walking by, and he didn't even pick his head up. And she just kept him walking right down the edge of the field, and they were gone. We never heard them again. So that's where I was talking, where it's it's hard because sometimes I'm like, I've had them here in the field, every freaking day on camera, and then I go pipe up and screw up their routine. And that's where I think I start overthinking it, is I'm like, now I'm messing with their routine. They don't expect me here. Now, I don't know whether it's more educated birds really affect them that way or whatnot, but.
Well, how long did you sit there?
We had 2 guys at the south end of the field right till noon. And then we had, me and my buddy, we got up, and after probably 7:00, we got up and we took off and went further south and hunted the ridge all the way back into the valley, but nobody heard nothing the rest of the morning.
Yeah, I think that. So the other thing with filming is you get to pick up on a lot of things that you don't perceive, whether your senses aren't good enough to perceive it, like you can't hear it or you can't see it. But typically the audible portion of it is very, very key in a lot of circumstances. And I'll see turkeys, if you watch the films and stuff, you'll see birds, they get up in there sometimes and they'll be doing their thing, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they'll stop, or they'll get super spooked for a minute, or they'll gobble, or they'll just change the direction they're facing, or they'll come out of strut, or they'll just do little nuances. Every time that bird stops doing what he's doing, it's because there's a turkey somewhere in the distance that gobbled, or there's a turkey somewhere that drummed, or there's a hen yelping someplace, or there's something going on that I wouldn't be able to hear. The only reason I know it happened is because the mic audio has it. And it's once I go in and I, boost it, I can hear that. But I've had turkeys come in the decoys, beating it up, no reason to leave, all of a sudden get spooked and run. And you're like, obviously they die, but you're like, what happened? You go back and listen to the audio, and there's a turkey gobbling, on the limb all morning you could never hear. And you can hear them getting closer in the audio, gobbling, coming to those turkeys, or those turkeys are going to other turkeys that are gobbling. But they always seem to find a way back to where they're roosted at before 9:30, I find. But some cases they don't. It just all depends on what's going on. But if they're with an adult hen that time of year and they follow her somewhere, typically they're going to follow her towards the end of the season. Like you were saying, they'll probably breed her and she'll probably go lay an egg, and then they're going to free up for the rest of the morning. And typically they're going to go back to where they were the most known. So they're roost gobbling. They're trying to attract turkeys to that area, to that centralized location. So they may get down and go screw off with a hen, but there may be other hens that meet them there. Or if you know where they're hanging out in the middle of the day, or you see birds do certain things, there's certain places that are like a sub X. There's the X, which is the assembly point in the morning. And then you have all these other X's where those gobblers go typically to gobble up a hen. And they'll do nothing. They won't gobble. They won't drum. They'll just walk around like a normal turkey, just being a turkey. And sometimes they'll go a mile. They'll go completely out of the audible range from where they could be heard on the limb by the furthest turkey. And they'll get to a field corner or whatever. And they go there every single day, like what you're explaining on trail camera. They'll go there every day and they'll gobble 16 times, and a hen will come running out of the woodlot next to it that's on a nest there, and she'll come over and get bread and then go back, and he'll shut up, never gobble again, and he'll walk another mile and go gobble a hen up over there, or spit and drum one up. They know where they're. Trent has a famous story about how he sat one day until noon, just about on, I don't know, it was like the last day of the season. He knew where there was a hen on a nest. And the famous thing is you'll see turkeys out strutting midday, right on a hedgerow edge or something. And they're just like standing there strutting. They never gobble or anything. Well, there's a hen on a nest there, and he's trying to drum her off the nest. So there was this spooky longbeard, and Trent knew where there was a nested hen, so he just popped up a double bull. She was on the nest in the dark, popped the double bull up, within gun range of her on the nest, and he just sat there and killed longbeard at like 11:30 or something in the morning. Came in, never gobbled, just tried to spit and drum the hen up.
That's awesome.
But just knowing those little nuances of what they're doing can really help you. But the limb talk stuff, like guys talk, they want to call them on the limb. I strongly advise against that in more circumstances than I personally would ever call them on the limb, because you're just kind of taking that card out of your hand. You got a wild card in your hand. And when you give away your position, walking in the turkey woods for any reason, like, you can walk around in the woods, and I tell this to people, they think I'm nuts. If there's a 10-mile-an-hour wind, you can put leafy wear on, and you can go walk around in the woods. And as long as you're looking in front of you, you can walk up to turkeys within eyesight of them, and they'll never see you. But as soon as you start calling, now they're looking for something. They start to get more vigilant. They start to look around for a hen that's kind of coming, trying to meet up the flock. Or they're going to avoid you altogether. Or even if you call further away than you think that they'd be able to hear you, they still are going to perceptually be aware that there's another turkey lurking around. And then they're going to start listening for your footsteps in the leaves on the ground, because they can sense that vibration a lot farther away than I think a lot of people think they can. And they're going to start analyzing your direction of travel. So those are things to keep in mind. But if you don't have to call, you don't have to hear a gobble. If you know where they're hanging out, man, just slide up in there, get set up, chill 15 minutes, call every 15 minutes on your glass call, man. And they may not make a sound, but if you're it's all about patience.
Yeah, I remember you were saying that there in one of your videos. You were like, it is just all about the patience. If you know where they are, just get in there. And
yeah.
I was going to ask you that too, kind of like when you're set up in one spot, what do you consider over calling?
Nothing.
No.
If you're going to call, if you're gonna sit there and blind call, just blind call. Just call.
You normally just kind of try to stay softer, or like not super aggressive, like cutting and kikiing and shit, just kind of just yelping and flock talking.
Yeah. Just, you can go through a variety of calls, and, because eventually you'll hit on one that'll spark their interest, if they're there and they really want to be hot. And you just kind of like that Indiana hunt, for example, where we were sitting in the snow, right? I think you watched that one. So it was 5. We've seen 2 longbeards meet 3 longbeards on this ridge side the day before. We knew they were coming there. So Trent just every 5 or 10 minutes, he'd run a different call. He'd go box call, then he'd go slate, then he'd go whatever. And he would just get loud, be soft, do a little of this, a little of that, a little bit of whatever, break a little bit. And then eventually mouth called and they gobbled inside 100 yards. They were coming there anyways, but he's just kind of for film, we want to make them gobble. Like, we want them to gobble, because the more that they gobble coming in, the more aggressive they're going to be when they get up in the decoys, and the less that they're going to think about it. They're coming in hot to go.
Yeah.
So you'll figure out where that point is where they want to gobble. And you start out and you just kind of work them a little bit. You give them a break, wait a couple minutes, make them gobble, wait a couple minutes, make them gobble. And then that frequency starts to pick up to where you're really revving their engine up.
Well, this has been awesome, because after watching your videos, I was like, this is a guy I need to pick his brain. And I also didn't know that you had such an extensive background in it. And obviously, like, you've been doing it since you were little, and it's just a passion, and it is to me too. But, I can tell that you've had far more interactions from a standpoint of really studying the bird and seeing what the little nuances are that they do and stuff like that. So, as long as you turkey hunt, I mean, I feel like there's always more shit to learn. And every time I think I got it figured out, I'll run into another bird that I can't figure out. So it's like just picking some other people's brains. It's kind of outside your hunting circle is fun.
Yeah. But in pressure states like New York, I will say that there comes a point in the season and stuff where not calling and not using any decoys is the leading method to killing turkeys.
Yeah.
Ambushing is always king, because if you have that's always, but some people are just, they don't want that experience. They don't want, they value that. Like me, I value the interaction with the bird. Like, have I bushwhacked birds? Yeah. I've crawled down a ditch, shot them.
Yeah.
Or whatever, or got in front of them, or deer hunted them because I knew they were coming there. If they gave me the slip a couple times. But if you want that interaction with the bird, you just got to be selective about the ones that you target, Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest ones that I ever killed, I think, ended up that he didn't hardly have a beard, but we'd been chasing him for a few years. He always gave us a slip, and same spot. Who knows if it was the same bird, but I feel like it's got to be the damn same bird, just the way it worked every year. We had a guy logging some property, and we were up riding 4-wheelers midday, and he was out there logging, and we stopped and talked to him, and he was like, you guys turkey hunt here? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, he goes, I could shoot a bird right out of my truck every morning when I pull in here. He's standing right over there strutting. He was like, I can drive right by with the windows down. He don't even give a shit. And we're like looking at each other like, this goddamn bird's been giving us the shit for years, and he's just letting you drive right by him in the pickup truck. And the guy's like, yeah, doesn't care. I get out of my truck, go get in the skidder, fuel up my saws, do whatever. He's like, the bird doesn't even move. He just stands there and struts. So that was a Saturday. Sunday, I went up there, and it was Mother's Day. And my dad was like, yeah, I can't go. I'm like, well, I'm going to try it, and then I'll come home. And I drove right up into the field with my truck parked right next to the log skidder. I left my entire turkey vest in the truck because I knew if I started hearing him gobble, I was going to want to call. So I literally just grabbed the gun and walked over and sat down on the edge of a rock pile. And that bird was gobbling on roost, and he hit the ground, and I could hear him drumming underneath me, and he came gobbling right up into the field at 10 yards, and I laid him out, and it was like 15 minutes off a roost. And I called my dad, and he was like, "You got to be kidding me." I'm like, "To a T."
That's so awesome.
And
man.
he was probably one of the biggest birds I've shot. He was huge. He was like 20, probably 23, 24 pounds.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
He was probably drumming super loud too.
Oh,
man.
he was. I could hear him for, within 100 yards. He was drumming up the logging road to me to hit the field, and I could hear him the whole entire way.
That's sick.
Yeah. And then, of course, I shoot him and get over there, and I'm like, "Where's the beard?" And it had a little stubber there, but I don't, he had like 1 3/4 spurs or something. I'm like, it's definitely a gobbler, but
that's what's up.
It was huge.
Who cares about the beard, man? It's all about.
Yeah, it was sick. The one I shot last year had some good spurs on him too, and he was definitely the mature bird of the flock for sure. But hopefully, I haven't seen any turkeys over there this year at that exact spot. But I think normally what happens is a lot of the farms over there by where I hunt, a lot of them have people that hunt them, and the ones that we hunt, we're the only ones hunting there. So I think what happens is we normally typically do like a couple of weekday mornings, so we're only in there till 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. Then we got to go to work. So it's really off a roost and out of there without trying to spook them. And, really don't put much pressure on them. But then we find towards the last 2 weeks of season that it's like every bird in the area is now on that property because they've been pushed off everywhere else.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
hopefully that tends to stay the same.
Pressure definitely affects the wild turkey in a lot of mysterious ways.
Yeah.
They're an interesting, the way that the things that I've seen, how they react to the loss of another bird in their flock and stuff, man, is like just really and truly incredible. Like they know all their cohorts, and they know when one of those voices is gone. And that whole pecking order has to reestablish itself. That flock
crazy.
In the winter gets tight. That all them birds know each other. By the time they split up in the spring, before they go anywhere and they go seek out their normal spring roosting sites and stuff, they have it all sorted out. They all know where they all stand. They know who's the mayor, who's the secretary, who's the judge. And when one of them goes down, they all, that by that night before the next morning, there's a lot of different things going on.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. There's always
why
been
don't we touch just a second here on, because I want to wrap up soon so I can get to camp and start drinking beers. But I really wanted to get this done with you today because I wanted to get it released here early in season because I had a feeling it was going to be a bunch of really good information. But we didn't touch a ton on your calls and what you got going on with that. So I just want to give you a few minutes to kind of plug that and what you got going on there.
Yeah, man, we've got no website. It's all on the Facebook shop. The new store opening up across from the boat launch down on Honeywell Lake on the southeast side. They have a small selection of our calls. I'm not sure. I have to check in and see if they opened yet or not. They'll have a small selection of our mouth calls in there, but other than that, we're not in any retail stores. The only way to order them is on the Facebook shop. There are 57 different mouth call varieties on there. Most of them are all based on the same. Each of the collections has the same reed structure. So it'll be a 3-reed, 4-reed, or 2.5-reed call. And they'll have different colored latexes. Those different colored latexes, whether they're blue, red, gray, and black, they're all the same. So all the gray ones, they're all the same. They just have different cut. All the red ones, same deal, just a different cut. Blue ones, just a different cut. And the main idea behind them is just basic physics. So an airplane wing works because the one side is longer than the other, and air traveling over it generates lift. So the mouth call, the top reed, is the tone reed, the one that has the cut. And that is what vibrates to create the sound. But you don't want the other two reeds to vibrate necessarily. So We put a thicker reed on the bottom, slightly thicker than we put on the top. And there's a support reed in there. Usually it's prophylactic right in dead center. And there are 4 reeds. There's 2 prophylactic reeds that are supporting in the center. And that allows air to take the path of least resistance over the tone reed versus allowing all the reeds to vibrate like traditional mouth calls do that have 2 lighter reeds on the bottom. And they're stretched fresh. Most calls that you get at a retail store have been sitting around for a while, typically a year or more, and the tension on the reeds tends to relax. They makes them harder to run. They don't have the lifespan that something pressed within a month will. And we got 3 friction calls. We got glass, copper, and slate. And we have a limited run of long cedar boxes like I grew up hunting with, a long boat paddle. They're sort of modeled off of a old Neil Koss style, who's a famous box call maker. The box call heads out there don't know who that is. But there's a limited run of 50 of those. We got a few of them left. We only got a few friction calls left. A few of our slate, copper, and glass. Actually, we're sold out of slate, but we have a few copper and glass left for this year. We got a bunch of apparel over there on the shop and stuff. The one thing that I will say is that a lot of people may have some sort of avoidance to a 4-reed turkey call diaphragm, but we run those almost entirely. We use some 3 reeds when we're actually hunting, but most of the audio and stuff that you see like that hunt from Saturday with Tanner and Caden, that was all on a 4-reed, and it's sort of the same mentality as blowing a mondo in the duck call world, which is like doesn't necessarily have the here's your buddy, doesn't have the same tone inflection that a double reed or single reed would, but it allows you to control volume really well, and it allows you to get a succinct beginning and end to your hen yelp note, and it'll really increase the frequency of turkeys gobbling to your calling. And so the candy paint, the gold teeth, and the platinum limited collection are great at, for somebody that wants to try out a 4-reed. Those are all really good. If you have decent mouth call and air delivery mechanics, those calls will really step up your turkey game, and they'll help with those guys out there hunting public land and stuff, because I guarantee you that there's nobody in those woods running a 4-reed.
Really?
So,
I actually don't
difference.
think I've ever ran a 4-reed. I don't know if you threw one in there in that pack. I saw you gave me a couple extra. I didn't see what
maybe
they were, but
I'll send you a couple down. They're a little bit different. They take a little bit of getting used to, but I sit here and edit the video and I look at the audio waveforms of real hens versus mouth calling, and you can see this just the way that the audio waveforms line up. There's definitely it's not rocket science. We're not reinventing the wheel, but we're trying to get it closer to actually matching that waveform, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good stuff. And I do have to say for you that anybody that hasn't seen your stuff yet really needs to get over to your Facebook page and just check out your marketing, because the shit is excellent.
On today's episode of Trap House, Who's Your Daddy?
I wasn't sure if this whole episode was going to be in your voiceover or not, but I kind of wanted it to be.
Yeah, throw a little pitch shifter and a ski mask on.
Oh my God, I love it. It's so funny.
Yeah. Hey, we're just trying to keep it, we're not trying to have any explicit references or anything like that. We're just simply trying to keep it fresh. Like I've watched this industry from the time I was a kid, man, and you can only have so many raspy old hens and
I know,
fucking purs, and you got to keep it a little bit fresh.
No, it's fun what you're doing. It's I'll couple of videos. I'll even freaking watch the ad or the little video again over again, because it's just so freaking funny. It's just it's having fun with it is what it's doing. And it's awesome. I like your I ran I think 3 different ones last weekend from you, and you could definitely tell that there's, I've had other mouth calls where I'll have like 3 different designs of them, and I can't really tell a major difference. I could tell running your mouth calls that each call had something like specifically different about it. It wasn't anything that was like super tone close to the one before it.
Right
So
on.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. We try to mouth calls are mouth calls, they're not rocket science. They're not, it's just what we charge for them. All that money just goes back into the brand, filming turkey hunts, doing what we love to do. We're not really drafting a paycheck off it or making $1 million or anything, like just fun and film equipment, stuff like that. And our turkey travels. And, we film with a whole bunch of different guys around here too. It's not just me and Trent.
Right.
And, but we're always trying to, I sit there and guys come in the shop all day long and I'll hand them something and see how it works. And if I can run it, that's great. But if, he can't run it, he can't run it, she can't run it, and doesn't really do me any good. And I don't really want to sell it to somebody, so there's a lot of research and development, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of running it through a lot of different, running this and that, and a little bit higher stretch, lower stretch, more back tension, just to get it to fit everybody that's in that category, so whenever anybody orders a collection of calls, if they order something that's something super selective to this, I'll throw in a call from here or a call from there, because I want them to be satisfied. And maybe this isn't what fits them the best. Maybe one of these does. And I want them to be satisfied, and I want them to find what works for them, and I want it to fit them better. It's just like, having custom made shoes versus having a pair of Nikes, like Nikes are just average, for everybody. But, if your foot's got a higher arch or you got a flatter foot or a wider foot, that people's mouths are the same way. You got to have a little bit of variation. So
you quality test all your mouth calls before you send them out?
No, they're all, that's a sterile process, man. But I mean, I'll run a run of them of, 15, 20 of them, and I'll take one of them and cut it and run it myself, make sure that everything's kosher, and then I'll throw that in my pile.
We hit a kid with that the other day, and he didn't know how to answer it. It was freaking hilarious.
Oh no.
I could talk to you for hours, but I think we'll wrap this up here. And I really appreciate your time.
It's opening morning, baby.
I went out this morning all excited that I had the day off and I was going to be able to go out and see what was going on in the spot that I haven't scouted at all this year, but I hunted every opening day. I was like, I'm going to get down there and listen. And it was decent at my house. And by the time I got out of the truck down on the hill, it was pouring rain and whipping wind. So I tried to get over the crest of the hill a little bit, but I didn't want to get too far in because I couldn't stay too long. And if they got on the wrong side of me, then I would have had to bust them to get out, and I didn't want to do that. So I just kind of listened and watched the fields for, I don't know, till probably 6:15, and then I bounced. But it was just, I'm not going to base anything off of what I experienced this morning because it was miserable out.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody else to kind of have that same mentality. Yeah. If they're there and they're usually there, then chances are they're going to be there.
Yeah. Or somewhere close or end up there. So
don't overthink it. They're just a bird.
They're just a bird.
They're just a big old fat bird.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to try to hook up with you here sometime soon. Have a beer or something.
Heck yeah, man. Get after me. You got my phone number.
Yeah. Have a good time this weekend, and can't wait to see the footage.
Good luck, buddy.
All right. You too.
Yeah. It'll be up. We're posting twice a week or 3 times a week, but now that we're home, it should be a faster turnaround. But there's 2 new videos up there today, and then this weekend there'll be at least 1 Iowa hunt up, and probably opening day and opening second day festivities too. So at least a little tease.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, send us a couple pictures to Pertnier's Instagram. Just message them to us, and a couple of good pictures that you want us to post up with the episode.
Awesome.
We'll get them saved and put them into some. Billy does all that shit. I know this says Billy Harvey on the bottom of the screen here, but I'm Jimmy. So
okay, Jimmy.
Yeah. We let Billy do all the technical shit. I just drink beer and kill stuff. So
yeah. Hey, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, right.
It's tough work, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Jimmy. Yeah, enjoy. Good luck tomorrow and be safe, buddy.
Yep, you too.
See ya.
See ya.